Hi, I'm talking to you today about suicide prevention. Your work as a first responder for the city of Austin really matters. It affects the lives of our residents, and that includes former and current service members and their families. Now, some of you are veterans or from a military family, and I want to thank you for your service. But you know, in addition to military culture, today you're going to learn more about mental health crisis intervention, suicide prevention. Now, suicide is a complex issue. There is not one cause, there is not one solution, but it can be prevented. So Austin was selected from cities around the country to partner with SAMHSA and the VA to improve the existing services in our community and to implement a citywide suicide prevention measure for service members, veterans, and their families. Now, Austin has accepted this challenge to reduce death by suicide, and I want to challenge every Austinite to be part of this solution. The video that you're about to see is one of the many efforts that we're working on. It's a brief overview of how local agencies work together to respond to a mental health crisis. We want everyone to know how to respond to a mental health or a suicide crisis. I'm committed to ensuring that our city is a place where veterans, service members, and their families can live, work, and thrive. Together, we have to both be more proactive and increase the quality of our reaction. Remember, suicide prevention is everybody's business. Let's do something. Thank you.
Have any that you want to start with, Ashley, or do you want me to see about these three I have?
So I've always had an interest in the mental health field. I have one.
Two of these are in Henry, by the way, right down the street from each other.
I have one in Henry. I have an undergraduate degree in psychology and sociology, and I have a master's degree in social work.
Hey, I just figured it out.
Oh no, I figured it out. And I'm a licensed social worker in the state of Texas, so it's always kind of been something I've been passionate about. So I'm able to bring a little bit of policing into social work and then social work into policing. Because ultimately, we want to help the individual. We don't want to just, run in and run out. We're trying to set them up for success. And even though a lot of this follow-up is voluntary on their part, it's up to officers on scene to get them to recognize that this follow-up is beneficial, and this is why it could be helpful, and giving them options a lot of times makes them feel more empowered. We'll either read the report that morning, or it might be a report we read the day before and we just didn't have a chance to get out to that individual, and so we'll do it the next day. And we usually do a few in the morning and then a few in the afternoon if we still have some. A lot of times people find themselves in crisis and they feel powerless and they feel out of control.
MH6.
As officers, we try to give them a little bit of that feeling of control back. Police!
The statistics show that 1 in 5 adults in the U.S. suffer from mental illness. My family is not exempt from that. The community, nobody in our community is exempt from that.
No, probably not. So the other one's just down the street for us.
And this is an area that I recognize, I see my family members who have struggled, and I wanted to make a difference that if the people that I show up on the scenes, they are somebody's sons or daughters. They are somebody's brothers or sisters.
I worked in this area for 5 years. It's changed a lot.
So I've been with the Austin Police Department for 13 years. In the last 8 years, I've been on the Crisis Intervention Team unit.
When I first started, there was just a lot more poverty, a lot more crime in this area. There were apartments, and some of them were really run down, and I remember I used to go down hallways of big apartments, and there'd be units where people weren't paying electricity, so they had an extension cord running out into the hallway and plugged in, so the apartment complex would have to pay for the electricity.
So prior to becoming a law enforcement officer with the Austin Police Department, I had my Bachelor of Science with Criminal Justice from Texas State University, And since then, with the Austin Police Department, I've received my Master Peace Officer license, and I'm currently a Mental Health Officer Occupation Code license through the state of Texas.
You know, our unit's not an emergency response unit. Our unit follows up after the fact. You know, anytime people have an emergency, if it's in the middle of the night, if it's in the middle of the day, and it's an emergency, 911 is the most appropriate number.
Maybe going to a mental health call, who knows? And that may involve law enforcement. In the state of Texas, at this particular point, law enforcement is the only resource outside in the community that can place somebody in an emergency detention to keep them safe and from harming themselves or others. That requires a lot of coordination and communication with law enforcement on scene to make sure that we keep the person safe.
So our unit reviews all reports where an officer comes in contact with an individual who was in some sort of crisis.
I'm really not sure what all is going on. Subject refuses to talk to me on the phone. We'll only talk via email, which doesn't help clarify anything. So we're going to go out there, try to make contact with the subject just so I can get a better understanding of what is going on, if there's, you know, a mental health component, which the officer on scene, when he took the original call, said he suspected it. The subject denies everything, which is not uncommon.
Once we know that we have somebody in a situation that is safe, they're not going to go off and harm themselves or someone else, then we want to make sure that, you know, we're working towards the least restrictive option and getting them that help. And that may include bringing in our mental health crisis team to evaluate the situation and let them take a better look at what's available.
I think if we're able to make contact with this subject in person, it'll clarify a lot of things and allow me to offer services, or, you know, kind of do what's most appropriate in this case.
We were sent the report by the officer and asked, hey, can you please follow up? So we're coming back. I don't think it's been very long. It's only been a couple days, I believe. And just to check on the individual, just to see how he's doing, see if we can get him connected up to resources.
I'm Officer Eunice Goodrich with the Austin Police Department. This is my partner, Officer Turner.
Hi, buddy.
Okay. We work with the CIT unit, Crisis Intervention Team unit. Okay. And we're out here today just checking in on you.
Getting people help instead of just putting people in jail.
I guess police have been out here a few times lately.
No, not lately. Never calling.
Make an assessment. Does this individual have a mental illness? And because of that mental illness, is there a substantial risk of serious harm?
Is there anything that we can do for you right now, or is there anything that you need?
Suicidal ideations, wanting to hurt other people, wanting to hurt themselves. If the officer makes the assessment that that individual is a danger somehow, we then have the opportunity to force that individual to get involuntary psychiatric treatment and take them to a safe location, take them to a doctor to get treatment.
We ask a lot of questions as far as what is the intent, what are the means, have you ever felt this way before, have you ever taken action before? Do you have contact with your mom or stepdad?
Sometimes, yeah. They can always come over. They just...
Does your mom seem concerned about you or anything? How often do you follow up with a counselor in regards to your medication?
So if it's a non-emergency or something that can be followed up later, Integral Care is the most appropriate agency in our community to refer individuals to. So that's utilizing the 512-472 helpline. So through their dispatch, they can coordinate with the community on voluntary resources. But if it's a situation where the individual is in danger at all, either to themselves or to other people in the community, it's imperative that you utilize the 911 resources.
One thing that we need to keep in mind is that we might make this individual several times in their lifetime. And all it takes is for one bad experience for them to shut down and not accept the help that we can actually offer them. So if they're really agitated or really depressed, our job is to get them from here to down here.
And explain to the operator everything that's going on, how the person is being dangerous, whether they're suicidal, whether there's weapons in the house.
So that way when the resources come, they can handle the patient better. We try to gather as much information as we can whether it's for PD or for the paramedics that are coming on scene.
All that pertinent information that law enforcement can utilize to arrive on the scene, de-escalate that situation, and then again, connect that person to resources.
Not everybody experiences a response to an emergency, and very rarely do people get a chance to see some of the situations that we respond into.
We got EMS coming out here.
You always want to try to respond to every incident with a balance of staying safe and protecting those that are responding with you, but also responding in a compassionate and confident manner so that you are taking care of the person that's calling and looking at this as a person-centered emergency, that you're there to help. You're there to help them stay safe and work through the situation and get them to a professional that can address the longer-term needs. So it can be very challenging.
All we can really do is just continue to follow up, or if we get notified that, you know, maybe they're calling 911 again for different reasons or even the same reasons, we'll continue to keep following up. Sometimes the more times you're able to make contact with somebody and offer them services, eventually they will take you up on that.
We need that communication element to be able to arrive on scenes and de-escalate in an effective manner to get that person out of that crisis without having to utilize force. And it takes a village. You know, the whole community has to help these individuals who are in mental health crisis. People are in crisis, they don't get to a place of wellness without community support, without us all coming together.
I'm starting for the CLT.
Plan for Baker 708, 3105 1.
10-4, call back.
We can't expect officers to know all the perfect resources because every person's different.
Adam 710, I'm back.
What their type of crisis is needs a different type of response. You know, we see people in crisis anywhere from like 30 minutes to just a couple hours.
Okay.
Because I asked him what triggers him, and he said whenever a girl breaks his heart.
Okay.
Okay. And then I asked him about suicidal thoughts, and he goes, I said, are you trying to hurt anybody else? And he goes, no. He goes, but if someone has to get hurt, it's going to be me. And I said, and then I asked specifics. He couldn't come up with any, but then he brought it back again and mentioned how he would hurt himself.
How did he say he could hurt himself?
He wouldn't say.
Crisis is very multifaceted. It can involve a myriad of things.
It was just, if they don't want to freaking kill me, they want to freaking like snatch me up and do something like that. And I know it sounds crazy.
And our officers, we were very well trained in how to de-escalate those situations, and then of course pointing them in the right direction. And that's our opportunity in those moments that we have an individual who's in a crisis to point him in the right direction.
He didn't have anywhere to go. He thinks that people are following him. He's already made suicidal statements, thinking, saying that he would die. Hey, this is Officer Barnes with Austin Police Department. So he's gonna be going to a hospital tonight. I don't know which one, but just so that you guys know, so you're not looking for him and worried about him tonight, okay? Okay. Yeah, so the reason why he called us earlier today, and I was trying to get in touch with you to see if there was anything else that you might have known was happening with him. We're just trying to get him somewhere safe. Does he use any other drugs that you know of? Yes, ma'am. He's not in any kind of trouble. I'm just trying to get him to a safe place so he's okay. Yes, ma'am. Have a good night.
Your incident has been updated.
After certain time periods of the evening, the resources just aren't always there.
Good evening, ma'am. This is Officer Barnes with APD. See if you guys have any room for a emergency detention. Suicidal and deterioration, yes, it'd be, but mostly suicidal.
Generally speaking, we're left up to our emergency room hospitals and our psychiatric hospitals for services after certain time periods of the evening. So an officer who comes in contact with an individual and thinks, this individual really needs some sort of treatment tonight, whether it's involuntary or voluntary, he or she's going to call around.
I'll be coming from North Austin.
Right now, we do work with Integral Care to help facilitate those.
No, he's cooperative. He is extremely paranoid right now. EMS checked him out, and his vitals, they said it was pretty good. So other than that, everything else sounds normal.
speaking with the operator, expressing what they're going through, what they're seeing with this individual, whether it's voluntary or involuntary, working with that operator on what's most appropriate, whether it's leaving the person in the community tonight and having integral care follow up in the morning, or it's, hey, actually, I think it's best to take them to this emergency room and talk to a social worker tonight.
That at least not you, but everyone else is not paying attention to what I'm saying, because I'm literally pointing out stuff that is really not normal.
I see. I hear you.
I wish you.
And that's why we're gonna leave. We're not gonna stay here. So.
But you're putting me in somewhere that because.
I explained to you why I made that decision.
Look at how slow this person's run behind us.
Okay. Well, we're gonna get out of here. Then we don't have to worry about him anymore. Okay. We're gonna get you out of here. Okay.
I asked him what his plan was. First he told me he wants to go to his mom's, which is on his address, but then he told me later on that he's not allowed there.
Okay.
Then he told me he wants to go to his girlfriend's house, but couldn't tell me which apartment. And now he's saying he wants to go to his friend's house.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have any plan to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So he asked me for a ride, and I was like, where do you want to go?
Uh-huh.
And then he brought up 3 different spots. He doesn't know the addresses to it.
He said that before he came out here, he was at the veterinarian place and people walking past him and stuff.
He said people were following him.
Okay.
Arrive on scene and do a full suicide assessment. We want them to address the risk factors for that individual, what type of crisis it is, and to make that direct positive question. Ask the question: are you feeling like committing suicide? Have you been considering committing suicide? And then through a risk assessment, determine what is the most appropriate action at that moment. Not everybody needs to go to a psychiatric hospital. Some people just need immediate crisis services from services like Expanded Mobile Crisis Outreach Team. Assess the situation, determine the risk factors, ask the right questions, and then based on that, make the best decision for that situation, whether it's involuntary or voluntary services.
So this one has been upgraded to a hot shot, meaning that the person they're planning on taking pills, so they may be actually actively trying to hurt themselves. So we're gonna get up there quick, okay? They're basically saying that looks like a female here is going to take a handful of pills to kill herself because she is suicidal. Yeah, it often happens. But you haven't taken anything, because I just want to make sure so that if I need to call EMS, do you need EMS for any reason at all? Would you like to sit in the back of my police car? You're not in any trouble. We can sit down. Huh? Yeah, she says she hasn't taken anything. Are you sure you haven't taken anything? Okay, because I want to make sure that you're safe, okay? Have you ever tried to hurt yourself before? No, okay.
It's because my life has never been this hard.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
At this point, I just really don't even want to deal with it.
Yes, ma'am. How old are you? You haven't taken anything tonight other than just drinking. How much have you drank tonight?
Well, I had 2, maybe 3 glasses of wine.
Okay.
Yes. And I thought it was gonna help with my pain, but because I'm off tomorrow, I've been working all week, and I thought, maybe I can, just, because I haven't been drinking all week. So
yes,
maybe I can just, relax and maybe try to get this out of my head, but
yes, ma'am.
I feel like it just made it worse.
Are you hearing voices or anything like that? Anything that other people say they don't hear or see, anything like that?
No.
Okay. How long have you been thinking about hurting yourself? Is it something that's been going on for a while?
Yeah, maybe since last month.
Since last month?
Okay. Or just adding up, and I just can't do it no more.
There's a lot on your plate, I hear you.
Slow it down. A lot of times people in crisis, we don't know specifically maybe what triggered their crisis.
Let me just grab your bag real quick. She was carrying a bag, and she gave me a bag, and she just gave me a handful of pills. She's like, these are the ones I'm taking. Just give me those first. Put those in the bag, and then she started talking about her hand, and we showed up. So.
Okay.
So it's important not to expect somebody to just magically calm down. If they see something that seems a little bit different than what a medical call or whatever that they're there for, take a step back and understand that there's more going on than what meets the eye, and start just asking basic questions. hey, are you okay? What's going on? What are you thinking about right now?
Yeah, it should be. It's its own whole thing.
It's obviously would be ideal if they were 24/7, and I think as a community we are working towards that.
At night, there are limited options because you don't have, the psychiatric emergency services with integral care may not be open. Sometimes psychiatric hospitals are full or can't accept an additional patient. So there's very few options oftentimes at night. It may only be the emergency room. It may be that they can get them into a psychiatric hospital. So there's fewer options. They may, we're looking at expanding and MCOT will be available 24 hours and we'll be able to call them out at, overnight or during the day.
During hours where EMCOT is unavailable, our community has a wide range of services that they can connect people to and link people to. I think the most important resource would be
Crisis line.
Integral Care's 24/7 crisis helpline.
What's going on for you this morning?
Because that runs 24/7 and it's available to anybody in the community.
We definitely want to see how we can help you with that.
Call in, get emotional support, or for a first responder to call, provide information so that they have the ability to notify EMCOT of a response that would need to happen when we are back in operation.
Hey, you said you put me on hold and it switched me to somebody else.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. She's put me on hold too.
He just got put on hold.
We make phone calls, we go out to them, we get MCOT involved.
Oh, she's just running insurance.
Officers overnight are able to kind of get that ball rolling.
Say what? Yeah, because I'm gonna hold on to it.
Either Integral Care or ourselves in the unit will follow up.
Like it happens every once in a while.
I don't know. He's still waiting on. He's still on hold.
What is he trying to do?
He said he's got Cross Creek. Oh, what was the other one? Austin Lakes. He said he's waiting to see which one will take her. Okay. Yeah, he said if she gets to anyone, call him back. If she gets accepted to Cross Creek, he'll call you right back.
I'll just take it across.
Awesome.
Creek.
All right, brother. That's it. That was weird.
Yeah. No, it shouldn't happen. It just, I guess, sometimes they get bogged down. They just, multiple people, and then like it.
Full night down there tonight.
Yeah. So what happens is, we call PES. PES contacts what's called utilization management.
Yeah.
Utilization management. What they do is they'll call around to different hospitals to see if they have like bed space, using like their insurance and things like that. But we also have the option of just calling the hospitals directly. And being that he was obviously, really busy on stuff, having a hard time, I just went ahead and tried to call this hospital myself. And I'm kind of getting the same thing he was getting. So right now we're just kind of in a holding pattern. She says she's fine right now. Yes, ma'am. All right. We are going to Cross Creek Hospital. What they were doing was they were trying to get her insurance verified. So now that the insurance is verified, we are going to go to Cross Creek Hospital. So we're just going to transport her there now. Okay. But look here, if you ever feel this way again, before you pick up pills or anything like that, you can always call us. We'll come out and talk. And all of your stuff is here in this purse, okay? Well, I sure hope everything works out for you. She said she's having some financial issues, and she decided she wanted to take pills. When she showed up, she had pills in her hands, but she gave them to her and everything. She said it's the first time anything like this has happened to her. She just wants some help.
Everybody has a queue in our unit, which means that every report that has anything to do with mental health gets routed through our unit and is read by officers in our unit. Last year we had over 16,000 reports come through, so we're getting reports, hundreds weekly.
Get your information real quick, okay? You told the other officer that you didn't really want to talk to Mom tonight, correct? Is there a reason why you don't want to talk to her? And just be honest with me. What's she been doing since then?
She said just walking.
Just walking around?
Very vague. Yeah, she's very vague.
It's Officer Barnes, I'm a mental health officer with APD. She's fine, first of all. But she called a friend, and it sounds like that she was having some issues, and she's feeling suicidal tonight. And I guess it was right after work. So I don't know if you knew where she was or not.
There's a lot of concerns come around being able to afford these services.
Yes, ma'am.
Getting to these services.
Yes, ma'am.
We take it one step at a time. Let's not focus necessarily on a month from now. Let's get you through today.
I'm gonna have to put her under what's called an emergency detention, meaning that she can't leave the hospital.
And then people can follow up with you after that to get you through the next day.
In the past, she has tried to hurt herself
Uh-huh.
by trying to overdose. She said in the past her mom has been abusive, but that's not the case tonight.
We're all able to head off the crisis in that moment, which is the most important part, because if it's not addressed in that moment, the likelihood for follow-up or proper care lessens.
Oh.
It's important to understand that it's not a one-sided treatment, right? It's not police are here, they'll handle it, or Integral Care is here, they'll handle it. We're all here to help the individual, and we just need to all do it together. And I think for the future, you're just going to see that continue to grow, and more entities are going to be involved in that as well.
For the last couple of years, mental health and how we respond to mental health crises and emergencies have been at the forefront.
Are we getting APD on this call?
Marissa Aguilar.
And what's your title?
Practice Manager of the Expanded Mobile Crisis Outreach Team. I think when we go and do our follow-up with her, we can kind of explore that with her again. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I have a master's degree in counseling.
The self-injurious behavior, a lot of times
Exactly.
that's trauma-driven.
And I specialize and have expertise in trauma, crisis intervention, suicide intervention and prevention.
Are you currently safe today?
And working with individuals who have serious mental illness. During my day-to-day here at Integral Care, I oversee the clinical operations over Integral Care's Expanded Mobile Crisis Outreach Team.
Medcom EMCOT.
Or EMCOT.
EMCOT, Medcom, go ahead.
Or Integral Care's Expanded Mobile Crisis Outreach Team.
Responding to page at 5015 South IH35. ETA is going to be 25 minutes.
Copy, ETA 25 minutes.
I'm at LMSW, so licensed master social worker.
9 still responding. Medcom.
So we get a page, and just from that we'll be able to tell if it's the police or EMS calling us. And so since that one was EMS, we use a radio to communicate with them, to notify them that you got the page, let them know our ETA, and then we pretty much leave right after that and head to the address.
Paramedics and EMTs have to respond to a wide variety of emergencies: gunshots and strokes, heart attacks, just general illness. Mental health, we're fortunate. We have a resource in our community that can come out and help us kind of sort through what options are best for this individual. So when it comes to responding to an individual that's experiencing a mental health crisis or emergency, one of our best resources that can help sort through what resources are available and would best suit this individual's needs would be a service like the Mobile Crisis Outreach Team with Integral Care.
Integral Care's EMCOT clinicians are all master's level clinicians. We have licensed professional counselors, marriage and family therapists, and social workers. Our team started in 2013 to expand services to meet individuals in crisis. So EMCOT receives referrals only from first responders and criminal justice systems.
They have access to a variety of different services: hospitalization, psychiatric emergency services, respite services, or maybe keeping them in the home. And they're trained professionals that know how to kind of sort through those best options and keep the patient safe.
Integral Care is one of our strongest partners in the community. We couldn't help the community the way we can now without our strong partnership. Determine if it's involuntary or voluntary. If it's voluntary, point them to Integral Care. Integral Care is the experts in our community on psychiatric treatment and solving somebody's crisis somehow, whatever that might be.
We're very fortunate here in Austin to have them.
And they really focus on suicide lethality risk assessments, because the number one reason
Can you scoot back a little bit that way?
EMCOT is referred out into the community is for individuals that are having thoughts of suicide.
We're going to take you to Del C, and I'm going to talk to the case manager.
What we do at the beginning of our shift is we radio in to 911 communication center and say we're logging on for the day.
Stay on the line, I'll tell you exactly what to do next.
So that 911 call center takers know that they can dispatch us and we're ready for calls.
Take care. You're welcome. Bye.
We do the same thing at the end of our shift so that they know when we've logged off. During the day, what clinicians are doing is they are available at multiple locations within the county in order to have rapid response to first responders that are requesting us out into the community to provide assessments for individuals in crisis. We have clinicians that are at a South Integral Care location. We also co-locate at 2 paramedic stations, one in North Austin, one in East Austin, and then we co-locate with APD and Travis County Sheriff's Office Crisis Intervention Team at Austin State Hospital. The team also provides ongoing follow-up services after that initial crisis assessment. So we can serve individuals in the community for up to 90 days. In those 90 days, what we're really looking at doing is helping support that individual through their crisis and linking them to ongoing services.
We also need them to be aware for a large portion of their call volume, those other issues that somebody may be experiencing that's preventing them from accessing healthcare or necessary services. Answering the question or being able to address why they can't get in to see their own doctor or why they can't get their prescriptions filled, and being able to identify those issues. Then we may send in people like CHP to address those longer term issues while we save the ambulance for those other immediate 911 emergencies that need an ambulance to respond right away.
Now, once we arrive on scene, our goal is really to best serve that individual in crisis and look at the best use of our resources within the community. So if we identify there's not a safety concern for the individual or for the clinician in the environment they're doing the assessment in, our goal is to release the first responders within the first 10 to 15 minutes so that they can go back into service and be available for their areas of expertise, which would be responding to public safety issues or responding to medical emergencies, while we as the EMCOT clinicians would remain with the consumer in crisis and provide our area of expertise, which is the suicide lethality risk assessment, and then facilitating safety planning to determine the next best step for that individual. The majority of individuals that are seen through the crisis services, whether that be through Integral Care's EMCOT team, Integral Care's 24/7 crisis helpline, or a walk-in clinic at psychiatric emergency services, we are able to keep the majority of people safe in the community for community-based follow-up services.
How do we better integrate mental health resources such as MCOT into our response model so that we get the right professionals in front of the right patients as soon as possible? The community in general has been interested in growing as the city has grown. So as we've added to the population, we've also added to resources available. We're very fortunate in that sense, and we continue to grow. There's a continual growth in terms of the mental health resources that are available, how we respond to those. We're looking at ways of responding differently to those emergencies, and so we've been very fortunate. What it looks like in 10 or 15 or 20 years, it could be anybody's guess.
None of us are taught that it's okay to take another person's life, and sometimes it comes to that. A lot of us ask, why are we still here when our brothers and sisters aren't? But to a veteran, it could be the day that they lost one of the most important people in their lives, or they took somebody's life. How many guys in here were raised that it was okay to cry and talk about your problems? Were any females taught that it was okay to cry and talk about your problems? While everyday life might be easy for somebody that didn't go in the military, for us, a lot of times it's a struggle. Society raises us differently. You know, military treats us differently. When I was in, females were not allowed in combat at that time. All of us come out completely different than what we went in as, because we have a different mindset. Face it, guys, we're not that easy to deal with. A lot of vets, you may not realize, are trying to avoid certain things. I know veterans that go shopping at 2 o'clock in the morning because they can't deal with crowds. There's a lot of different things that people will avoid that'll trigger them. And to y'all, might be the 15th, might be just be a regular Tuesday. To a veteran, this could be the day they lost their best friend, the person they considered their brother. While we're trained to go into the military, in that 4 to 20 to 30 years that we've been in, because a lot of people haven't been diagnosed. We're not trained to adapt back out of the military a lot of times. It's the brotherhood, a sisterhood.
Which is at a premium in today's troubled world.
And so when you get out, it's like losing family.
We never knew when a harmless-looking piece of scenery might explode.
On the surface, it might look like a cut and dry issue.
Enemy fire or a booby trap.
Every hour and 20 minutes, another veteran takes their life. I come from a large military family. My name is James Lambert, peer coordinator here in Travis County for Military Veteran Peer Network. My great uncles, my grandfather, my cousin, who I consider my sister growing up, they were all military, my mom. I moved back to Virginia where most of my family are from, but where I grew up, there was not a lot of economy. A lumber mill and a prison. And I was like, I'm not going to work at either of those. Strangely enough, after I got out of the military, those are the two places I worked. I worked at the lumber mill waiting to get on at the prison.
There can certainly be a sense of isolation, and oftentimes they may not be aware of the resources and supports that are available to them. I am the Associate Director of Integrated Systems of Care in Adult Behavioral Health. I am a licensed professional counselor, LPC, and then I'm also a veteran as well. There's pieces of that life that will never leave.
Tell you what there, candidate, you don't speak to me unless you're at the position of attention. That is, your heels are together. You're
in some, kind of really small and interesting ways, from the way that I hang my clothes in my closet and my shoes in my closet.
You're going to be folding your skivvies, and at all times, candidates, you will fold these skivvies exactly 6 inches by 6 inches. Is that understood? Yes, sir.
In the way that I give directions, in the way, in our mannerisms, in the way that we talk, in the way that we interact with the world. So that shift can be rather abrupt. The military gives you your reason for being.
I tell you what, you candidates probably think you're ready for inspection, but so far none of you have been.
When we say it's a structured environment, it is a highly structured environment.
Attention to detail! Attention to detail!
The biggest thing that I do as a non-veteran to connect with folks who served is to not assume I know anything.
Eject, eject, eject.
And to let the person in front of me be the expert, because they are. They are already the expert. They're the only one who's lived in their shoes. They're the only one who's lived their life. And their military experience is going to be unique to them. How and when and where and why they served is their story, and everybody's story is different. I would say veterans are people. They're running around in our workplace, in our families, and in our cities, in our neighborhoods. And like anybody, they have multiple identities. It's not just a talking point. There's no one cause for suicide. There really is no one cause. Hi, this is Catherine. I'm calling from the VA. So one of the things that's making it really hard for you is, a veteran may call the crisis line. With mental health treatment, it's a lot of things gotta come together. In crisis, wanting to get connected to care, okay? Often it's not an emergency moment. The person is calmer, has a direction, has hope. How is that affecting you, if at all? And then they'll ask that veteran, would you like somebody at your local VA to follow up with you? And then that person would be me and my team. And so I'm gonna follow up on somebody. I'm gonna read about what's going on with them. A couple things of what prompted the call. I get their phone number, best callback number. and then I'm going to read a summary. So this person called, they're having a lot of anxiety and some panic attacks. They haven't gotten care here at the VA in a while, but it really is a whole host of things going wrong. I'm going to call them now. I make these calls all day long, so I'm getting the voicemail. I'm gonna leave a message. Sorry I missed you. Give me a call back whenever you get this message. Leave a message with your name and your phone number so I can call you back. Thanks. It is being a little bit of a detective. Actually, there are and then I'm gonna have a conversation with them about it, get to understand a little bit more about what they need. Wait, let me answer. They may not be doing well and have the most clear outlook. No one does in crisis. That's why it's called a crisis. So you're going off on you're going off, and I can hear that. Just looking at that entire picture. I let you go off into that, and also asking the person like what's going right, and it's as much as what's going wrong. I do have a great solution for that. They can help you kind of coordinate services. I feel like that's an oxymoron to say briefly summarize what a suicide prevention coordinator does. Every day looks different. Twice in a row, leaving a voicemail, I increase my likeliness that they're gonna answer. I am an activist and I'm creating social change wherever I am. And so I do like that I actually get to do that in this role, because I feel like making community partners, strengthening relationships is part of that activism. And have you ever started to do something to kill yourself and stopped, or ever attempted in the past? What's going on with you medically? Do you feel good? Are you in pain? That's gonna add up. If you're having a lot of issues with sleeping, struggling with insomnia, struggling with chronic pain, that's gonna make folks really miserable. So that's also something to be looking at. But that whole leap of having to, I guess I'll call this lady, Catherine said, and she said they do free therapy. It's scary, it's intimidating to make that call. And so it's just a lot of steps in between. Oh, well, I'm so glad no need to apologize. That's why I always call twice in a row. I'm really conscientious of how much post-traumatic stress disorder hogs the spotlight. I'm Catherine, and I am here at the Central Texas VA, and I'm following up on your call to the Veterans Crisis Line. And then doesn't allow folks to have other things wrong with them. Yeah, so that is me who's calling you back. So I'm glad I reached you. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, which means I have my master's degree at an accredited university in social work, and I have sat for 2 statewide exams and then continue to keep learning and growing in my field. I like to say I get the chance as a social worker to create change on the micro, mezzo, and macro levels. But before I throw ideas out, I sort of want to know, what do you think would be helpful? Where do you want to start? It's a relay race, meaning there's batons being passed between agencies, between teams.
Is he currently homicidal?
No. Hi, this is Jamie with EMCOT, just responding.
And I'm even part of that. So with each time that a person interacting in crisis is going to engage with a new team, there's an opportunity for a missed connection.
As I was separating from the Air Force and coming into civilian life, it was, as I think back on it, I felt really isolated.
The majority of veterans who are eligible for VA care do not interact with the VA. So we are not going to be seeing them, we're not going to be able to provide them with suicide prevention care.
It's really important for us to raise awareness of those services and supports, because what we know is that when veterans and their families are connected to those supports, we help decrease the chance and risk factors of suicide for veterans and our family members.
Therapy is good, but you can only do so much when you're talking to somebody. If that person's isolated in the house, except for that one day a week that they go to therapy, it doesn't get them out into public. And through these organizations, you're around other veterans, so you make those connections.
Also, not all veterans qualify for services through the VA, and so this is where Integral Care can come in and help fill in the gaps with many of the programs and services that we have to offer. As we make that shift into civilian life, we're not always aware of all the resources and supports that are out there.
If you don't know where to go and you don't know what questions to ask, you're not going to ask them.
One of the unique things that our Military Veteran Peer Network, or MVPN, one of the really unique things that they do is that they're seeking to help veterans and their families by recreating that community.
I got my master's in social work, and I did a lot of stuff on campus with the veterans at Texas State, and I was fortunate enough that a friend of mine from Texas State was working at the Samaritan Center. He referred me over that they had a job opening, and from day one it was, we're here to help the vets that need help, which is what I was all about.
The VA does not have a monopoly on healing. There's lots of ways to get better, and what that's going to look like is going to be unique to you. So I usually give a few examples of nonprofits that we have in our area, and we are rich in good nonprofits here that specifically tailor their services to service members, veterans, and their families. And they range from everything from horse therapy to fly fishing to women's groups to running clubs. There's all kinds of stuff.
These other therapies have huge benefits. You look at some of the stuff that's out there, and if we would start promoting that, and the federal government would start promoting it, state governments, and helping these organizations to reach out to more people, the turnaround can be tremendous.
Connecting with individuals that can relate, that have had similar experiences. Oftentimes this is where we begin to identify what those needs may be.
I don't want somebody to end up homeless like I was. I want to help them get out of that addiction situation, get the help that they need so they can become successful in life. They were successful in the military. We need to help them be successful in regular society as well.
That's why programs like MVPN, that's why they're so critical. And they serve in many places in the community. They're connected, and they're really out there trying to connect wherever you might find a veteran.
They do the same thing. They work with active duty, they work with service members, they also work with family members, because a lot of times the family members catch the brunt of what's going on.
One of the things that we do is provide transitional housing through our Safe Haven program. It's a shelter that specifically serves veterans. These are veterans that are being referred from the VA, and our Safe Haven program provides housing, meals, mental health support. They're also providing many of the services that I talked about, like help finding housing and permanent supportive housing, job training and employment support.
There is this new incentive and support for working together with our state agencies, our city agencies, our community partners, our nonprofits, faith-based agencies, employers, community groups, so that we have a coordinated effort. These are the entities where service men, women, veterans, families live. While the VA is working really hard to prevent people dying by suicide, we also know that state agencies are working hard, city agencies are working hard, and so how can we work hard together?
When we respond to an individual that is experiencing thoughts of suicide or harming themselves or others, it's often something that they've been thinking about for some time. It's not something that you're going to put in their head or suggest to them. It's something that they've been thinking about for some time. And you may be the very first person that asks that question. So I always encourage our staff, based on the situation and what's appropriate, to find a way to at least ask that question and ask them directly. Are you having thoughts about hurting or killing yourself today? Are you having thoughts about harming yourself or harming others?
And that's going to make everybody's job easier, unless people are going to fall through the cracks.
Asking for the help and asking for the resources is the first step. And from there, you never know where it's going to take you. Look where it took me. Y'all might be the one person that makes a difference.